This week on Spoke TV, a big box store gets approval to take up residents in the region, but only if certain conditions are met.
Long-term official planning document for the City of Waterloo does show that location as being a preferred location.
Also, the piles of snow accumulated over our long winter are melting, meaning floods throughout the region. And later, find out how the Bare Naked Ladies were groundbreaking in the evolution of technology in the music industry.
And vinyl, and then CDs, and it's just changed so much how bands reach their audience.
I'm Brittany Mifsud.
And I'm Kelly Burns, and this is Spoke TV, your source for local weekly news produced by second-year broadcast journalism students at Conestoga College.
The popular chain of superstores, Costco, may be opening its newest location on Herb Street in Waterloo. But traffic concerns may be putting a stop to the plans. Spoke TV's Molly Mercier takes a look.
Plans to open a Costco in West Waterloo by the end of the year look unlikely after city councilors voted on Monday to hold off with construction until traffic issues are dealt with. Behind me is where the new Costco is set to be built. However, the building may be delayed for several years. Waterloo City Councilor Diane Freeman explains the major issues causing the delay.
The long-term official planning document for the City of Waterloo does show that location as being a preferred location for a car-centric big box store. But the challenge is timing and working out when is the right time to implement that vision.
Easing traffic concerns may depend on the region moving faster on previously planned construction projects in the area.
As we grow as a city, we're bordering on our relationship with our countryside line. And in that particular part of Waterloo, there are some very important environmental sensitive landscapes.
However, some people in the area may find the new superstore beneficial and more convenient for their shopping needs. With only one other Costco in Kitchener at Sportsfield Crossing, Costco member Joshua Foster can't wait for the project to go underway.
Yeah, it seems to be pretty crazy around here. Lineups are huge, not enough parking, congestion getting out and onto the main highways. It's just not a good scene over here right now.
For Spoke TV, I'm Molly Mercier.
In order to stay competitive today, it's becoming standard for web developers to create versions of their sites that are transferable from computer to tablet to smartphone. Spoke TV's Rebecca Turner explores the issue.
With all the different devices available on the technology market today, people have become accustomed to multiple screening, in which media is consumed from at least two devices simultaneously. Web designers have had to adjust their layouts to cater to a more fast-paced and competitive online atmosphere. Graphic designer Molly Hill says that clear and accessible sidebar content is essential.
And everybody's expected to know all sorts of stuff these days because the information is available, so having that sidebar there to access is really important.
Popular websites have added features that tell readers how long an article reads and to gauge how much content a reader has viewed.
A really long article, I may skip it or find a shorter version of the same information.
Designers are making it a priority to have content be responsive on devices ranging from smartphones to desktop computers.
And the idea is that the content would adjust and flow from one screen to another, and the format of the site would change completely. So how something is ordered on a laptop screen would be very different from a phone screen.
With so much internet content readily available, the scape of websites is constantly evolving, but quality remains a focus.
I think it's probably twofold. I think one is that notion that, if I click through what's next, that kind of breadcrumb trail that happens. But I think the other part is content. It comes down to content. If it's bad content, it's gone.
For Spoke TV, I'm Rebecca Turner.
Smartphone users have been complaining for years about high monthly bills and unnecessary charges. But a new act may be easing some of those worries.
The Wireless Services Agreements Act has been in place since April 1st and makes owning a smartphone a little bit less stressful for people who renew their contracts or start a new plan. Under the changes, service contracts for mobile devices such as smartphones and tablets will have to be written in plain and unambiguous language. The cost of canceling a fixed-term contract will now be capped at $50, and phone companies now need customer consent before renewing or extending service terms. Providers now also must show the minimum monthly service charges in any ad that talks about pricing.
Coming up, you may have noticed more residences with solar panels and green roofs. A local organization is helping us take a look at how we can live in a more sustainable way that is good for the environment and our wallets. The month of April usually brings a lot of rain to the region. With the record snowfall we had this winter, it's no surprise that the flooding of the Grand River has already begun, and there are a lot of warnings still in effect. Flood warnings stretch across the Kitchener-Waterloo region this week as warm temperatures have melted all that snow. Grand River Conservation Authority warns of flooding in parts of the region with heavy rain expected. Be aware of your commute as bridges and businesses could be shut down as water levels rise. Residents in flood-prone areas in New Hamburg and Ayr may need to leave their homes. This year's snowpack was at a 40-year high. Areas like Riverside Park shown here are already underwater.
We all know global warming is a major issue that affects us all. And although it seems like an unsolvable problem, with Earth Day coming up on April 22nd, there are ways you can make a difference on a small scale. Steve Spar talks with leaders and innovators that are trying to help keep our environment green.
Climate change. It's a challenge we often view on a global scale. And while there's no question that international measures are necessary, solutions are also needed at local levels. Other cities and towns across Canada are already decreasing their total greenhouse gas emissions in order to reach a community reduction target. To join the nationwide effort, Sustainable Waterloo Region, located at the Communitech Hub Tannery, helps businesses reduce their carbon footprint. Tova Davidson, Executive Director of Sustainable Waterloo Region, explains what this action plan can do for the region.
Historically, climate change initiatives have come from a national or even global perspective, with the UN trying to create things like the Kyoto Protocol. The challenge they've always faced is that one solution for one region or municipality or community is not going to fit with others. However, having that understanding is critical to people being committed to climate change.
While it appears that the emphasis for reducing greenhouse gases is on the national scale, many people are asking what they can do at the local level and on a personal level. Ian Graham, owner and operator of Small Dog Studio, whose houses and studio are powered by solar, shares with us what an individual could do.
I think with the technology, it's only going to be getting better. And when it comes to people wanting to do this stuff, there's a lot of people that can help you with installation. The installation is actually really easy. The main thing is the final connection to the grid, which you definitely want to get an electrician involved with something like that.
For Spoke TV, I'm Steve Spar.
China might implement an idea that Canada first made a law in the year 2000. Photos of sickness and disease on cigarettes have worked to curb smoking in our country, and China is hoping to do the same. John Morris has the story.
According to a study which was co-authored by a professor at the University of Waterloo, large pictorial warning labels on cigarette packs could be the saving grace to China's smoking problem. UW professor, ITC project principal investigator, and co-author of the report, Jeffrey Fong, explains some results from the ITC's evaluations.
But in the 21st century, that's really shifted. It's shifted because tobacco control policies have become really strong in Canada, in various other places. And part of it, as we've seen, has been the graphic warning labels in Canada.
In 2001, Canada was the first country to introduce large pictorial warnings on cigarette packs. It resulted in a 12 to 20% decrease in smoking rates over 9 years. According to the summary of the ITC report, large pictorial warnings in several countries result in behaviors associated with people who are going to quit smoking and not start again. Canada also doesn't allow branding or promoting at stores. You can't visually pick a pack. Corey Schwartz, smoker of 5 years, shares his opinion.
It's flaunted out to young children. When it's easily accessible, people are going to take advantage of it, right? The less accessible something is, the less somebody's ever going to see of it.
For Spoke TV, I'm John Morris.
After the break, we take a look at the 14-year-old Waterloo gymnast with Olympic prospects.
A 14-year-old Waterloo gymnast has returned from the Pan American Junior Artistic Championships in Brazil with 5th place under her belt. Spoke TV's Rob Hoff takes a look into her busy life, her big goals, and her future.
Not many 14-year-olds can claim that they've traveled to Russia, Brazil, and France. But for Sydney Townsend, it's just another day at the office. Townsend has just recently returned home after placing 5th overall in the Pan Am Games in Brazil. Because of her stellar achievement, Townsend now has the opportunity to represent her nation in China for the Youth Olympic Games in August. I'm here at Revolution Gymnastics, where Sydney Townsend spends about 30+ hours a week between 6 days. She also gets exempt from school early, specifically to come to the gym to practice gymnastics.
It's hard to balance school and gym, but my teachers are pretty supportive and they help me. And I also have a math tutor. So.
In order for Townsend to proceed to the Youth Olympics, she must first compete for the solo spot at the National Championships. Even if Townsend doesn't make it to the Youth Olympics this year, she will have many accomplishments to look back on, and it will only add to her list of experience and eligibility for future opportunities, as coach Aaron Brokenshire explains.
I think whether or not she makes it there, she'll continue on this path of getting better and reaching for her goals, which probably include world championships, making a valiant effort to see if she can make the Olympic team in 2016, and then a full scholarship at an NCAA school in the United States.
For Spoke TV, I'm Robert Hoff.
Everyone has their own way of expressing their fandoms, and some of them may be a little bit different than you may think. Alicia Van Mayen takes a look at the unique subculture known as furries, who some feel get a lot of negative attention from the media.
It's curiosity, I guess, is the first response usually.
They are the internet punching bag, but does anyone really know what a furry is? University of Waterloo grad student and PhD candidate Courtney Plant is part of a research team that is finding out.
So a furry is a person whose interest in anthropomorphism, that's the giving of human traits to animals or animal traits to humans, that interest is so strong that it actually becomes a part of how they identify themselves.
Plant started his research in video game violence, but furries sparked his interest.
I was looking for a project to do in my second year of grad school. So I picked video games, which is one of my passions, and then I picked furry because that was another hobby of mine, and I figured, well, make your hobby your work.
With funding from the Canadian government, the International Anthropomorphic Research Project will be attending Anthrocon in Pittsburgh this summer. The project is one of the only research teams studying furries at the moment.
Dr. Sharon Roberts, a professor at Renison University College, is part of the team going, but the team hasn't always been received well in the furry fandom.
The furry fandom has been let down repeatedly by media, unfortunately. They use stereotypes and they basically exaggerate it and apply it to the entire group. Our international team has worked really hard to overcome that, and we've done it by including furries on our team, by consulting. We have an entire advisory team that we work with, and being really respectful.
For Spoke TV, I'm Alicia Van Mayen.
The internet has been a great medium for musicians to be heard. Even Justin Bieber was discovered through YouTube. But there are both good and bad effects that the internet has had on the music industry. Spoke TV's Candace Cobbing explains.
It's no secret that technology and the internet has changed the face of the music industry. The musicians who benefit the most, perhaps, are those who embrace it.
I live a 21st century life.
I'm lucky that I love music, but also growing up I really was kind of tech savvy. I would use whatever technology was in the house and use it really optimally. I'd design my own web pages when I was 12 and 13, and I look back on it thinking, wow, I spent a lot of time in front of the computer, as well as my instruments, but it paid off because it helps me make sure that there's an accurate portrayal and that I'm able to express myself in this medium, which is the internet, you know what I mean?
Alicia Brilla's current website was made by Industry Corp, a company that focuses on the marriage of creative technology and entertainment. Along with their extensive resume, CEO and creative director Andrew Matlock talks about some of the work the company does within the music industry.
We do a lot of business rights management as well for artists on top of content creation. So we'll place their songs in games, in shows. We'll do a lot of things where we actually help manage them themselves. Doing their administration, advising them on certain deals and whatnot, as well as content creation. So we'll sometimes even collaborate with them. We'll do some recording. We'll also make them websites once in a while.
Of course, as with everything, there are ups and downs when dealing in this digital age.
It's kind of a catch-22 because the platform that people are able to get onto, whether they're super independent or with a major label, is kind of the same. you get the same exposure on YouTube or on, you know what I mean? And so on one hand, it's great because as an independent artist, I don't have to rely, like I said, on those big machines to get my music out to different people around the world. But on the other hand, I've been performing live for let's say many years, and like I really honed my craft, you know, or whatever. And there's lots of people who have done that. And then like John Smith picks up a guitar and plays something and gets on Ellen.
Oh, wow.
And of course, there's one Canadian band that has always been innovative when it comes to technology. A Canadian staple that in 1994 put their interactive press kit on a floppy disk. A band that later put an album on a flash drive. Fast forward to today when we have the ability to watch music videos on our own phone, and these guys took it one step further. The first ever Earth to Space collaboration.
Houses everybody, anybody.
The Bare Naked Ladies, lead singer Ed Robertson and keyboardist Kevin Hearn talk about the making of Is Somebody Singing with astronaut Chris Hadfield.
No, it was really fun. We recorded it live off the floor with Chris live in space, and we're all so good that it wasn't hard at all.
Yeah, and we had a full team of people who had prepared for the session, and it all ran quite smoothly. The coolest part was seeing Chris, like, at the end of the song, he let his guitar go, and it just kind of floated out of the frame. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, this isn't really normal.
Before this high point, the band has worked through it all.
When it started, we were dealing with cassettes and vinyl, and then CDs. And it's just changed so much how bands reach their audience. So I think it is important to stay on top of that. And as Ed said, now it's really fun with Instagram and photos that you can post of where you are on tour. The fans can really be a part of the whole tour.
But do they have to do a lot of performing in order to compensate for album sales decreasing?
Only if you want to make money.
For Spoke TV, I'm Candace Cobbing.
Up next, this is not something you see every day. Find out why strangers are whacking each other with pillows in Waterloo Town Square.
If you weren't able to move your wrist, juggling may be the last thing you would think of doing. Brendan Swalbeg shares the story of a young woman who has overcome adversity.
For Naomi Stagger, Tuesday nights are circus nights. What started out as a passion for juggling has expanded, and the University of Guelph grad now has new skills thanks to her 3 years attending Guelph Circus Academy.
My favorite part about circus class is that it's always a physical challenge, but also a mental challenge because you are always learning how to do new things.
Stagger is no stranger to working past challenges, and her determination has not gone unnoticed by her coach, Andrew Giordano.
She's juggling 5 rings. That's a really impressive thing for any person to achieve, never mind Naomi, because she's got a whole other set of challenges to work past.
Those challenges stem from a rare disease known as congenital radial ulnar synostosis, which affects movement at her elbows. Comprised of 3 bones, the humerus in the upper arm and radius and ulna of the forearm, the elbow joint allows for flexion and extension. But that's not all it does, as U of G anatomy teaching assistant Sean Baudet explains.
The joint between the radius and the ulna allows you to flip your grip. So supinate as it's in right now, or pronate like this. As soon as we flip it into pronation, you'll see that these bones cross over and that the radius is the only one doing the movement.
With radioulnar synostosis, the radius and ulna actually become fused at the joint.
So when these bones are basically fused together, right at the distal end of the elbow or far end of the elbow, these bones aren't allowed to move anymore. So you're fused in a state of basically semi-prone or semi-supine grip.
And the degree to which the elbow is stuck at varies from person to person, or even elbow to elbow.
In my case, my left hand is set 5 degrees in, like that, and then won't move. And my right hand is set 5 degrees out.
It is a lack of symmetry she says she is thankful for, as it has helped her to adapt to different situations.
There are a lot of things in day-to-day life that use that rotation that most people wouldn't notice. Something as simple as turning a doorknob.
While she has had to develop her own techniques for certain instances, She has also become aware of adaptive technology for others.
The keyboard that I have is split right down the middle between keys G and H, and each side folds up independently.
But because the condition is rare and the limited range of motion affects so many situations, she has had to develop her own techniques to adapt.
Anything that I have done as an adaptation is something that I figured out myself. For example, one of the ways that I get around change at a till is to have a coin purse that has a really, really wide mouth, and I'll just get the individual at the checkout to put the change in the top.
It was the same when she was learning to juggle. And while she prefers juggling rings because she doesn't have to turn her hands over to catch them, it hasn't stopped her from trying more challenging props.
I most recently learned how to juggle clubs. Clubs I thought would be an impossible thing for me to do, but if I juggle reverse grip, then I can play too.
Giordano has tried a reverse grip and says it is much more difficult than a normal technique.
It's not very intuitive. It's like holding your hand out and then having something spin into it. Then you have to catch it at just the right moment as opposed to it falling down into your hands.
But he has never doubted her.
I know her to be a person of determination, so I knew that she'd figure out a way.
That determination is what got Stagger started in juggling when she was 12 years old.
Someone in a phys ed class told me I was never going to be able to do it. I took that as a challenge and said, I'm going to show you.
So with 5 rings and 3 clubs mastered, Stagger is looking for the next challenge to overcome. She and Giordano are learning to pass juggle.
With a little bit of tweaking of the technique, Andrew and I found a way where we can both play and have fun.
For Spoke TV, I'm Brendan Zwallenbag.
Pillow fights are no longer a slumber party pastime, but an international phenomenon. On April 5th, people around the globe gathered to whack each other with pillows to celebrate International Pillow Fight Day. Amari Nicolau was at the Waterloo chapter and even joined in on the fun.
3, 2, 1, pillow fight!
If you thought only kids enjoyed pillow fights, well, you are surely mistaken. For 1 hour, there were men, women, and children having fun hitting strangers with their pillows in uptown Waterloo Square on Saturday, April 5th.
Everybody can participate at the International Pillow Fight Day, only if they have a featherless pillow, and they cannot swing at people who don't have one.
Event organizer Dan Lochner explains why he started this 4 years ago.
I just think pillow fights at the end of winter is a good way to get your winter aggression out and enjoy the weather and talk to people again, because we've all been cooped up in our homes for such a long time. It's a good way to talk to your neighbors.
This year, Captain America came to the pillow fight and found out that kids just love to hit the superhero.
Kids love pillow fights, and I figured dressing up as a superhero would be kind of fun for them. I didn't realize that they'd all try and hit the superhero, so that was a real surprise for me.
Participants had a really good time hitting and laughing.
Somebody hits you and you instantly want to hit them back. Yeah.
And laugh.
And laugh. Lots of laughing. It's really fun. Yeah.
It is fun.
Yeah.
For Spoke TV, I'm Amari Nicolau.